All right, today we're going to brew a winter warmer, which is basically a Christmas ale, and I took a recipe out of Brewing Classic Styles by Jamil, Zainasheff, and John Palmer. Now, I'm going to be flying kind of without a net here because the recipe calls for 19.5 pounds of English pale malt, so they're not messing around here. And although I knew it was quite a bit of grain, I didn't exactly do the calculations before going out and buying all the ingredients. And I think my mash is going to be pretty full. So I'm going to have to make a little bit of a modification here. And I want to actually show this process because sometimes you're going to come across recipes and you're just going to have to adapt them to your own brewing equipment. So I think this is going to be a perfect example for that. So here's what I did. I went out and got the recipe just as it was stated on the book, which is 19.5 pounds of British Pale Ale malt. I got Crystal 80 Lovibond. This is 3/4 black patent malt. I got a 1/4 pound. I got Horizon hops, and I've got Y Yeast 1028 London Ale. I bought one packet. You have in here, let's see, use 17 grams of rehydrated yeast or 3.5 liquid yeast packages. Now I'm not going to buy 3.5 packages of yeast because that would just be too much too expensive and you don't need to. So what I did is I did a step starter. So 2 days ago I did a 2-liter starter, pitched the packet in there, and then last night I did another 2-liter starter, and that's what I have going on right now. So with that, with those 2-liter starters, I'm going to have pretty much about the required yeast cells that I have in here. Now, if you actually take the time to read the book like you're supposed to, the first few chapters actually tell you how they go about putting together recipes, what are their assumptions and so forth. So one of the things that they say is that all of their numbers are based on a 70% extract efficiency. Now my system, usually I follow closer to a 75% mash efficiency. So I went back into my software and I typed in all the numbers, and I figured that in order to get the 1090 original gravity that they have stated here, what I really need instead of 19 pounds is closer to about 16 pounds. Now that's with me doing kind of a continuous sparge. Now if I do a batch sparge or if I just do a no sparge at all, obviously my efficiency is going to drop. So here's what I plan on doing. I'm just going to use the ingredients as they are, and I'm going to try and go for a batch sparge instead of a continuous sparge so I can get closer to the 1090. However, depending on how well my mashing holds the temperature, if I happen to need more room to add water to bring out the temperature, then I may just take out some of the grains and take a hit on efficiency by using less grains. However, I'm going to try and compensate by doing a continuous sparge at the end. So I'm going to have to kind of like play it by ear and fly without a net. So the way that I'm going to do that though, I'm going to actually hold on to my specialty grains and I'm going to add these at the very end. That way if I ever need to take out grains, I'm not taking out any of my specialty grains. So that's my plan. Hopefully this kind of helps you think about the brewing process a little bit differently. Maybe it opens up your mind a little bit and helps you think of different ideas, different ways of brewing beer and achieving the end result. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's get started. So you start out by dumping in all of your grains into the kettle. Now, this recipe uses a lot of grains. So one thing you want to make sure when you're doing a recipe like this one is you want to make sure that you have enough room in your mash tun to conduct the mash. Now, one thing I did for water adjustment is I tried the pH, the 5.2 pH stabilizer instead of adding calcium or gypsum or calcium chloride. So I added that in and then I just mashed in. According to the book, we are supposed to mash at 152, and I believe it did a little bit higher. I think it came in at 54. I did a 1 quart per pound ratio. Make sure that you stir your grains. There's a lot of grains in here, so you want to make sure that all the grains are, thoroughly wet. And here's what I'm showing the results. 5.2 pH stabilizer seems to have worked pretty well. Let the mash rest for 16 minutes, and then at the very end of the mash, I started adding my specialty grains. Since I had plenty of room, I wasn't too worried about not having enough room in my mash tun. And then I went ahead and mashed out. So again, this was at the very end of the mash after the 60 minutes. I poured water to bring the temperature up, stirred that in, and I started to recirculate until the wort started coming out clear. So you can see that first quart was pretty hazy, and once it came clear, then I just started to collect my wort. So I had to collect about 7 gallons of wort, which is quite a bit. I actually had to use 2 containers. And once I did that, I started to bring this to a boil. Now I had a little bit of calcium, about I think like half a teaspoon of calcium chloride, just to bring out the maltiness. And now another thing is my hops. The hops that they use here were 13% alpha acids, and I believe mine were closer to like 9%. So I ended up adding my hops at the very beginning of the boil. So this was a 90-minute boil, so that extra boiling should make up for the bitterness since my hops were a little bit less alpha acid. Okay, so when I had 60 minutes to go in the boil, I added the rest of the hops, and I didn't add all of my hops at the very beginning. I just added about half of them, and the other half I added at 60 minutes, and that kind of made up for the lack of alpha acid units. So when I had a minute to go in the boil, I added a half teaspoon of cinnamon, and then I added a quarter of a teaspoon of ginger. Then I threw in 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg and 1/8 of a teaspoon of allspice. Sent that into a whirlpool, and I started to chill the wort. So that's pretty much what the wort looks like when it's done. And in this one, I actually ended up leaving as much truth as I could behind all the hop debris and the hop rake, whatever came out of there. I left it back, and then I pitched my yeast. And again, this was made from a step starter. I made a 2-liter starter, and then I made another 2-liter starter. So I used the yeast from the first starter, pitched it onto the second starter, and this is the second starter that I decanted most of the beer and just pitched the yeast slurry on that. So after that, I just fermented at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, constant, and that's pretty much it. So hopefully this is ready by Christmas, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. I'll try and do a beer review of this beer before Christmas. So hope you enjoy this video. Please don't forget to share this video, click the like button, and leave me a comment. We'll see you guys next time.
Like, just
Just randomly combine caramel, malt, hops, and you're fine.
Let's do it.
All right, that's
Grab one,
that.
we'll see. Line this up. We're missing 2.